Welcome to podcast episode from Sentinel project. Today we have with us Paulo Antunes. Paulo, it's a student from the University of Lisbon. He's doing his Ph.D. on security related issues, and we invite Paulo to have this short conversation with us and to speak a little bit more about what he's doing and basically what is his projections for the future with regards to cybersecurity. So, Paulo, thank you very much for accepting this invitation. So, it's an honor here to have with you. I will basically, as we say in Portugal, pass the ball to you so you can introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, who you are, and what you are doing.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. Like you said before, my name is Paulo Antunes. I'm a third-year PhD student at the Faculty of Science of the University of Lisbon. And my PhD work is focused on security, like you said, and I focus mainly on web applications. So what I'm doing right now is I'm developing a tool that will be able to analyze web applications, namely in PHP, which is the most widely deployed language for web applications. And what I want to do is to be able to analyze them, analyze the applications, and then be able to determine if they're vulnerable or not, and correct them along with giving a proof of exploitation. So I'd like also to generate something that will show that, yes, this application is vulnerable. So please do be careful. And having this exploit is useful because a lot of times developers aren't very trusting when you tell them there's this issue. You need to have some kind of proof to show them that yes, this issue is real and it can be actually exploited in a real life scenario.
Okay, so thank you for this introduction, Paulo. This will lead to, let's call it, to our first question. Since you are mostly connected with the university and the academic world, you're also doing the PhD on this area, but just looking especially how the things, the way you see it in Portugal. How, for example, security and with relate to security, data protection, how these issues are being addressed in college, in university. Is it something that more and more is getting the attention of students, also not only on master, but also in undergraduate students? Is this something that it's piquing the attention of students to these issues, to this matter? How do you see this on the university world?
Well, speaking from my experience, in the bachelor's, it's more of an introduction to security. And if you want to really dive deeper into more of these topics and in the various areas of security, it's better to go into a master's. But I will admit, when I joined my bachelor's, I wasn't expecting that I would follow security, but I think the course might have been restructured, but in my time, it was the third year, which is when I have contact with security. And it was then that I actually thought, okay, this is really interesting, and I really like this. And so, even though if you don't have a lot of security information in your during your bachelor's, it gives you some basic notions, and most of all, it gives you the idea if you want to actually go down this path. When you get to the masters, okay, there you get a lot of deeper knowledge and the various areas of security. So in my case, given what I'm doing, what interested me most was analyzing code and detecting if these vulnerabilities exist, how to exploit them, and so on and so forth. But you have various areas that you can deal with. So, for example, you have tolerance to intrusions, which is knowing that eventually your system will be compromised and how you will deal with this, and stuff like this works around a lot of having redundancy. So being able to, having one machine compromised, but if the rest of the system is okay, then you can still keep on operating. And this brings you another topic, which is consensus, which is making sure that all these machines are in agreement. And there's a lot of areas within security itself. And I do believe that the Masters does give you a good broad vision of what is out there.
Okay. Do you think that there is an alignment between what is being taught at the university and what are basically the demands from the market? I mean, from your perspective, from your opinion, do you think that we've been watching to an increase of demand from the market side? I mean, from the companies? Are companies aware that they need this kind of expertise? They need this kind of professionals more and more? And if it is this something that is reflected also in universities in order so that probably students could see that this could be a good opportunity because the let's say the demand for this kind of professionals is increasing. So do you think that into some extent potential the students could go following this path?
Oh yeah, in terms of market demands, there's been a big increase. I don't recall the exact numbers, but I think it's around a 10% increase year on year. So I think it was somewhere between 10 and 11 to this year in terms of the demand for security professionals, and I think it's estimated to be 20% by next year. So there is a lot of demand from these areas because most of the applications nowadays are target to some kind of attack eventually, and you want to be able to prepare for this. And one thing that also causes this security this demand increase, in my opinion, it's not just linear. It usually works in spikes. So whenever there's a big security incident, everyone starts ringing the alarm bell, and we need someone to fix this. And I remember when I was finishing my master's, it was around the time that GDPR was implemented, and every company was scrambling. We need someone to make sure that we're compliant with this. We don't want to pay that huge fine. We don't want to deal with this. We need someone to fix this. And that's not the only security instance. Like when ransomware appeared and at its what was it? Was it WannaCry? When that ransomware appeared, everyone was also trying to figure out how to best deal with it. And also COVID made us more reliant on these applications, and everyone started working remotely. And like I say, sometimes we weren't the only ones working remotely. Like the criminals were also working remotely. So there was since there was more use of these applications, there were also more applications being developed to accommodate for the new remote work status quo. And well, more stuff to be exploited, more information to be obtained. And well, I think that's always going to be a trend. The more we rely on these applications, the more people will also want to attack it, because there will also be more valuable information available.
Yeah, because at the end, I mean, the challenges are always there. As you mentioned, we had the COVID situation that in pretty much, I would say, created additional challenges when you have people which are remotely working and they are not physically located in the same building. So I believe that it imposes different challenges to be addressed. And of course, companies need to be prepared for that. So the challenges are always, let's say, new, and we need to be always ahead of these challenges. But you mentioned something. We mentioned something that was very interesting. Was the appearance of GDPR, and there was this boom of companies that start hearing this for the first time. I'm pretty sure that most of them didn't know what GDPR was all about. So I tend to agree that probably the demand for professionals in this area, when GDPR started appearing, basically increased. Uh, but something that we witnessing also here at the national level is that there are companies, SMEs, that nowadays seem not to be totally aware of data protection and data privacy, and they need to be, into some extent, safeguard with regards to some of these challenges. Of course, SMEs, they don't have, let's say, the financial capacity to basically hire consulting or auditing companies that can do this kind of work for them. So, what could be, I mean, from your experience, and then I know that you are still, let's say, doing the first steps on this area, but from what experience, where do you think that, for instance, when regards to SMEs, where they think they can basically looking into their IT, which are the areas that they can start covering and addressing in order to be more, let's say, aware and be, to some extent, more compliance with GDPR.
Well, the GDPR is really tied with not only a legal department but also the security implication that it has, and I would probably advise trying to get developers that can be aware, at least to some level, of the security implications and also the legal implications of not having, for example, encrypted data and just having it all out in the clear. It's important that if they can do that, or if you can kind of help these developers also attend courses that will bring awareness to this. But like you said, it's always a game of budget, and these small to medium companies usually a lot of times don't have a lot of budget to spend on this. But I would urge them to try and allocate some budget, because not having the consequences can be much worse than can be much more financially costly than not providing this environment and the care for the developers. And if you can actually have security experts and analysts looking at the application and performing various tests throughout the development, or at least in between deployments. So before deploying a new version of your applications, you'd like to have someone actually go through it and check if they take the certain security boxes. But yeah, when you don't have a lot of budget and you're not willing to spend it on something that isn't immediately beneficial to the to your company, I understand that why a lot of these companies don't do that. But it's like we say, it's a shot in the foot if you don't do it.
Yeah. Do you think that also, for instance, open source software can also have a word here on this matter, for example?
Yes, there is actually something I would recommend, which is OWASP, which is it's open source, and they have a lot of tools, and they provide a lot of studies on the current. I think it's every 2 years. I'm not sure, but it's not very regular. But they give you a top 10 of the most exploited vulnerabilities and their criticality, how much they're being exploited. And I think that going through these also helps would help these developers focus on key issues, because there are some problems within the code that can be more pressing than others. So usually we define vulnerability as a bug that can have security implications, and having more innocuous bugs, like for example having a space within a string when you're printing out the web application or any other kind of application isn't as bad as, for example, having someone being able to inject a query into your SQL database. So being able to focus on these I would say high priority criteria would also help these developers. And I would recommend checking OWASP, because OWASP has several tools that can help you out.
Okay. And Paulo, how do you see us, for instance, in 5 years' time? How do you see? Do you think the challenges will remain the same? Do you think we have new challenges also to be addressed? How do you see, for instance, with regards to IT professionals and also the market of solutions for cybersecurity? How do you actually see the landscape, the, let's call it 5 year time plan?
Well, when it comes to security, it's hard to take anything for granted, because there's always new attacks and we're always depending on new tools. And a lot of times you also utilize tools that you think are safe, but then you realize, oh, it's not safe. There's actually this one vulnerability. And in the realm of applications, for example, you have a lot of CMS, which are content management systems. And imagine now, if I were to discover a key vulnerability, like a very critical vulnerability in WordPress, a lot of applications would be compromised, and you can't be sure if everyone is going to fix this application. So if I discover this vulnerability now, it could be exploited for a lot of years to come. And this kind of sets the stage for it, I think, which is people need to be more aware of these security related incidents. People need to be up to date, because even if there are tools that can fix these, I wouldn't say actually fix these, but they would help you fix these. That I don't think there's such a thing as a 100% secure application. So as much as I would like to be hopeful and say in 5 years from now there will not be any vulnerabilities, we'll all be safe, that will most surely not be the case. There will always be new attacks. There will always be new vulnerabilities, even in things that we think are rock solid. Yeah, so even Intel and AMD, which are companies that have a lot of money, that even some years ago they had very critical vulnerabilities in their CPUs. And yes, I don't think that vulnerabilities are going to disappear. I think they will always keep on existing, and probably this will also make sure that there is also a certain demand for security professionals to work and to be able to tackle these issues in the future.
Yeah, and also I think it's also one important dimension. It's that I mean the human is involved here on the loop.
Mm-hmm.
So of course human is prone to errors. So it's a vulnerability by itself. So also with regards here to training people in order to be more aware that things can happen. So there is also here the I would say the social aspect of the story that also needs to be undertaken.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes. Sorry.
yeah,
For
yeah.
sure.
Go ahead, Paul.
Especially with like we were saying before about the remote nature of work now, which is, well, it started with COVID, but a lot of people started just working remotely now. You have people having access to key infrastructure from companies now, and having that laptop go home, even if it's very security locked, having that laptop outside, not within the company, can also be a liability. That in the the tendency that people have to put their post-its with their passwords on their computer. It's never good. It's always another attack surface, another point that someone can enter. But yes, you were right. Social engineering also plays a big part when it comes to security.
Yeah, I guess there is a need here and also demand to educate also professionals and workers within this organization on the best practices and best procedures. Yeah. Okay, I think that we are on the end. So, Paulo, I would like to thank you once again for accepting this invitation. It was very nice to have this talk, and I would like to wish you all the luck for your PhD. Okay, and hopefully we can cross again on another opportunity. Okay. Thank you very much,
Thank you
Paulo.
for the invite again, and thank you for the well wishes.
Okay, thank you.
Good luck for the rest of the podcast.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So, this was another series of podcasts. So, don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel and please stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you very much. Bye.